Hello everyone, welcome to our first meeting this year. I'm waiting to. Hello everyone, welcome to our first meeting this year. Today we talk about introduction web development. Our speaker is Rihanna Kedir, who is Google developer expert. Before we start, I would like to introduce myself and my teammates briefly. I'm İknur Akçay. I'm web development team lead in DSC Medipol. I'm interested in web development. I worked on Angular this summer. That's all about me. Zishan, let's continue with you.
It seems like Zishan's voice is not here. So, okay, no problem. I'm Hamza. I'm from Egypt and I'm a computer engineering student, 4th grade, and I'm trying to become a front-end developer. That's all about me. So before we get started, just remember that we can get your questions in the live chat bar through YouTube. And welcome, Rihanna.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. It's really a pleasure for me to be here and start the year as the first event with web development, which I'm fun. And I was a student once, me too. Now I'm a software engineer. I work full-time as a software engineer at the United Nations. And I'm also a Google developer expert in web, Flutter, and Dart.
Awesome. So first, we want to know who is Rihanna Kedir. Actually, we know, but the people should know too. So could you please give a brief introduction about you to people?
Oh, okay. So software engineering is my third career, actually. I started as an accountant soon after I graduated from the high school. Then I did some courses on art and design. So once I was also a designer. And then I enrolled in the software engineering in the computer science degree at the University of La Sapienza in Rome. I finished, I think, 6 years ago. I graduated, and ever since I was working, and I'm still working as a software engineer, and mostly in web development. So that is more or less me. I'm fan of front end. It could be that I have a prior little time experience as a designer, so mostly that could be the reason why. And I'm fan of mobile also development, still on the client side or the front end side. And I like to create beautiful things and trying out new technologies and checking out new frameworks and making happen user experiences and user interfaces.
Awesome. Okay, so you are free to start the presentation, and after that we will get the questions from everybody.
Okay, great, awesome, thank you.
So you can share your screen now.
Okay, here it is. And hi again, everyone. I'll start with my presentation. I'm just going to do a really brief intro about web development. Any questions, feel free to write. And this is just a starter kit, let's say, for the roadmap of being a web developer for 2021. So web development, first of all, let's define web development. Let's say that it refers in general to the tasks associated with developing websites or web applications for hosting in the internet. The process of web development might include different aspects, roles, and responsibilities, such as designing, first of all, then developing the content, then of course the coding. And we are here to talk about the coding part. And at the end also the configuration for the hosting, and at the final part also the optimization in terms of performance, and in the second time also the optimization in terms of the search engines, and so on. So in general, web development, it refers to all these tasks associated with the building and deploying a website or either a web application. But first of all, I want to talk about the difference between website and web application, so we are sure we are talking about the same thing. When I say websites, it refers to static sites. I don't know, it could be like a normal website where you reach to see some information and you cannot interact with it. While web application, for web application, what I mean, it's still a web page, but that the interaction creates some kind of differences in the let's say in the interface. And also it creates some kind of interaction with some kind of backend. So in general, for example, to give examples, a web application could be a Gmail. You interact with it, you open, you write, you send, or either a Facebook. We can say that Facebook is a web application, or Amazon, or YouTube. So let's see that the differences between websites and web application, because it's important, definitely important when we want to approach web development in general. That said, in web development, we have more or less two roles, the backend dev and the front-end dev. In summary, front-end developer work on what the user can see, while the backend developer build the infrastructure that supports the front end or the client side application. Both are necessary components for a high functioning application or websites. The term front end refers to the user interface, while the backend means the server, the application, the data, the database, some tasks, and so on, that work behind the scenes to deliver information to the user. And when we refer to full stack developer, it means simply a developer that can do both of these tasks or this development. This is kind of a summary. Don't worry to see the details, but it's important to know what are the roles of the front-end developer and what are the roles of the back-end developer. That said, I want to talk about some expectations and the real reality when it comes to web dev in general, when it comes to development. First of all, what non-dev friends think you do when you say you are a developer? Usually they think you work like an hacker. So the questions could be, can you hack my friend's or my boyfriend's password to Facebook so I can spy on him, on her? Stuff like that, which is not really true. What you feel you do at first as a starter developer? Well, this depends in what stage you are in your career of development. At first, which at least it was my case, at the first step, you feel like you have too many choices, too many things to study, and you don't know where to start from. And when you reach to the point that you are an intermediate level developer, you feel still the same. You have still too many choices. You might be a bit confident that you can adapt yourself in different tech or in different development style or technology, but still there's a lot to learn and there's a lot to choose from. Once that you get the technology, you are good in developing, you create some stuff to show to others, and you start working as a real developer. In that point, most of the time, in terms of front-end development, most of the time, what you do is search for answers, look into Stack Overflow, ask for help, see how the others made or find a solution to the same problem you are facing, and so on. One of my first studies that I did in terms of front-end development, there was this course that I took in the Udacity platform. And there, one of the first lessons, it said that 70% of time in front-end development goes to searching, and 30% of time goes to coding. And I think that is what you will be facing when you wish to be a front-end developer. And in terms of those 30% of coding time, still there is going to be some time you lose to find out the right names for your variables. So the difference between starter and a senior front-end developer, it is how good you are in searching, how good you are in finding the results soon, and how good you maintain your code, and how good you can find the answers in the internet or either in your own repositories or projects that you already have made. So anyways, we have to start from somewhere. And when we talk about the front-end development, the very basics is the structure, is the fundamental to learn is at least the HTML and the CSS syntax, and then the JavaScript as a language. So if CSS and HTML make, let's say, the structure of the website or web page, JavaScript will be the muscle that is responsible for the functionality of your web page or web application or website, however you want to put it. So basically, very first step, obviously, it's to learn HTML. HTML, it's fundamental, is the base. There's nothing we can do. We have to know it at least a bit in terms of being able to know the difference between the different tags in the HTML. Then CSS, how well CSS depends, but yeah, we still have to know a bit of CSS and JavaScript. So how much HTML, CSS? This depends on what you want to do. Basically, the more we know, the better. That will make our life much easier. But then it's also important what you are going to use as a framework, or either what kind of web development you are going to do later on, or you are aiming to do on as your career. When it comes to JavaScript and front-end development, for sure is the scary part, but it's not scary as it seems, but it just needs its own time. And it depends on each of us. And I want to share with you these two quotes. The first one, two quotes from Douglas Crockford. I don't know if you know him. It's the inventor of JSON. Anyways, the first quote is, JavaScript is the world's most misunderstood programming language. Good. So it's up to us to continue misunderstanding it or understanding it well. The other quote, it says, JavaScript is the only language that I am aware of that people feel they don't need to learn before they start using it. This assures us that people think it's easy, and then they find out that which is not easy. But in whatever the case it is for us, my best quote in terms of JavaScript is, don't judge JavaScript by its parts. Learn the good stuff and stick with that, because it's a language that is there, is gonna stay for sure. It's everywhere, and there is no way, at least for now, replacing it. But however, we can use some other language on top of JavaScript if we hate JavaScript, if we reach at the point that we hate JavaScript. And why people hate JavaScript mostly? Well, this is a showcase how JavaScript is mostly used. And if this is the case, it's obvious that it's not an easy language to understand or to appreciate. So don't be such kind of developer. The next step, I said HTML, CSS, basics, then JavaScript, depending on where we are going to end up as a developer. Nowadays, when you work on in JavaScript, it's called that you work vanilla JavaScript, meaning if you don't use frameworks, we refer to developing without using frameworks, just in JavaScript, vanilla JavaScript development. But anyways, whether you choose to develop vanilla style or you would like to adapt a framework or whatever, the next step, a part of learning the HTML, the CSS, the basics, and so on, it's testing. Testing in terms of where are you testing your web page. Let's say you coded your portfolio on HTML and CSS, very stylish, very nice. Where did you test it and where it looks good? At least you used a browser, one at least, for seeing how it works, right? It could be Chrome, Mozilla, Edge, Safari, whatever. Then the problem is any web page is delivered for any kind of browser. So one of the next steps to know is in which browser some features of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript are supported, in which are not supported. And the code that we are writing are visible in any browser. So basics as a syntax language. Next step, knowing the multi-browser compatibility and the cross-browser compatibility. Of course, it works in every browser in the world, in every browser that it's present. And at the same time, it should also work in every version of the browser that it's present. Next step, responsive design. So here too, we coded a website or a web application, whatever, a web page anyways, that is looking good in a desktop, but we have to make sure also it looks good on a mobile. And especially nowadays, most of the websites, web applications, web pages are seen mostly on mobile rather than on desktop. So does it look good in every kind of device and screen size? That's the next question to ask. And that answered, the next step is to know some principles when developing. So we made our first project in vanilla JavaScript. We made our very first project without even using JavaScript, so just in HTML and CSS. Then we made another project, then we made another project, then we made another project, and so on. At some point, one of the things that we will see is to avoid repeating ourselves. So don't repeat yourself, meaning don't repeat the same tasks over and over again for different projects, or either in your same project. And the other main principle when it comes to web development is don't reinvent the wheel, because everything is there. Every other thing that you want, everything that you want in terms of task or interface or a nice button or a nice accordion or a nice gallery, it's already there. So don't reinvent the wheel in terms of try to use as much as possible what is there, what is tested in terms of cross-browser and multi-browser compatibility, and so on. Because other developers before us have already passed in the same problem, and obviously they thought about it, and obviously they created a library or a framework. So one of most most challenging thing about frontend is knowing the libraries or frameworks to use. It is in order to know the libraries or frameworks to use, it's important to at least know the differences between libraries and frameworks. Libraries give you functions that the application can call to perform some kind of task. So it's like we put some kind of code that some other developer or company has already put there, and we see the documentation how it works. We just put it inside our project and use it. In the other side, frameworks define how the developer should design the application, so they are more robust. Once chosen the framework, we have to stick with that. Our all projects should be able to work based on that framework, while in terms of libraries, there are just portions that we use or functions that you use. And obviously, frameworks and libraries can work together. So that said, the very challenging part of front-end development, as we go on learning new stuff, making more projects, is choosing the right libraries and the right frameworks. I invite you to check this site, in which it shows the days that passed since the last JavaScript framework. I checked it today and it was 0. So meaning that every day at least one JavaScript framework is being created and deployed. And that is the most challenging part of front-end, choosing from thousands of libraries the right one, and choosing from hundreds of frameworks the right one that works for our project. In terms of JavaScript frameworks, we have multiple choices. We have React, Angular, Vue, Svelte, Next, Gatsby, and so on. As much as you want, there are a lot of choice. That depends on what kind of project we are working on. Or some can be suitable for the project. Some are suitable because they are easy to learn, and some are suitable because they are similar to the other, and so on. As a front-end developer, do we have to know all the frameworks? Obviously, no. The main thing is to learn one and learn it well. Then, if we have time, or if we have to work in another project with another framework, or if we are curious enough, we can go on to see the other frameworks. But in terms of JavaScript frameworks, the next step after vanilla JavaScript, so knowing the very basics of JavaScript well, is choosing the right framework that can work for us. So here we can choose based on the first tutorial that we made, or based on we found that we are following a course and that is in one framework or in the other framework, or based on whatever it is, just choose one, learn well. If it's possible, choose another one, learn that too. But having the very basics and and knowing well one framework will help even to compare to the other, learn at the second time, learn the other one, comparing to the one that we know well and seeing the differences. So next step, obviously, to become a good front-end developer and to work as a front-end developer, we need at least to know one of the very used frameworks. The same thing for CSS. CSS, in terms of learning CSS, it's not that easy, especially if we have to write the CSS from the scratch. So here too, there are thousands of libraries and frameworks available that we can use in our projects. Here are the lists, but there are like other. Bootstrap could be the one that was used for the past years mostly. So it could be that you find templates on Bootstrap more than templates on Tailwind or Materialize. But anyways, we have choices. Do we have to know all? No, don't even bother. We just have to know one, here too. If we need to switch from one framework of CSS to another based on how it looks, because maybe it looks great. The buttons of this framework are really nice. The other one uses some colors that are really nice. All we need is just to know how to see the documentation, learn the classes, the CSS classes that are used, and adapt in our project. And okay, so choosing CSS and knowing the which kind of CSS frameworks that we have, choosing the JavaScript library and everything. One of the most important thing in front-end development is knowing some tools. So the must to learn tools in terms of development in general, not only for front-end or web development, Git, or knowing at least one version controlling tool is nice. Git is the one that is commonly used. So knowing Git will help a lot, even to maintain a history of your own project in some kind of repo. So also in that case, it's important not to maintain your mini projects that you are doing in your own computer, but having a repo where you put, and whenever you want, you go and take that code and see that code. That is important. So version control and using some repo manager, but this is like something external. So it just it's more related on how to organize, let's say, your way of working, right? So it's about where to save your projects, how to maintain the history of your project. So more or less, this is about the version control and the repo management thing. One thing that is really important while developing is knowing the browser developer tool. So browsers have their own developer tools. If you have already been developing in web, you probably know. So Chrome DevTools has its own development tool, and the other browsers also. It's important to know how to debug using these developer tools, to see how your code, to be able to see the portions of performance, or either to analyze your project inside the dev tools of the browser. The other most important thing is to choose the editor. That could be a Visual Studio, WebStorm, IntelliJ, whatever, Sublime, whatever editor that you like in terms of web development. Choose one, know the extensions, see how it works, and use the shortcuts, learn the shortcuts. That will make your life much, much, much easier as a developer. So next step, okay, so I said very base, HTML, CSS, must. We cannot do without that, so it's really a must. JavaScript, we cannot avoid JavaScript if our roadmap is to become a web developer. So let's dig on that. Don't hear things around that say it's hard. It's a matter of practice, and that's it. And so we said tools that we have to know. And now, recapping everything, in 2021, as a front-end developer, more or less, you have to know these things that is scrolling in this GIF. Now, in terms, not that you really have to know everything, but at least know the word, I mean, the terms, or either know some of these groupings. So yeah, in terms of what is expected as a front-end dev, we have this list. You can check it on the link that is in the slide. And we might don't know all. It is definitely okay. It's almost impossible to know all. But a good developer have idea of what it's about. Each term that is written in these boxes are essential to understand where front-end is going, what to learn, what to see, what are the trends, and the trends in 2021, which means if we are looking for a job, at least we have to know some of these terms. We have to know how they work. We have to know the trends. What is the best framework that is used currently? What is the best CSS framework that is wisely used now, and why? So we have to answer these questions. And this is the level where you reach as a front-end developer. You can choose from the frameworks, use the frameworks. If there is a new framework, you can, in few hours, understand how it works and use also that framework. So this is the roadmap of becoming a front-end developer now, as this year. In the other hand, what if we don't want to code? I mean, I love coding, so I think that most of you love coding too. But there are cases also, maybe we can do some stuff without coding. And of course, we can do that. We can use the content management system, for example. And here's the list of the commonly used right now. And here too, for example, WordPress. Actually, like more than 65% of the websites in the internet are made of WordPress. So knowing that content management exists and we can do websites without coding is also another thing that we have to know as a front-end developer. We don't have to use the CMS because it's not for a developer that is coding or creating its own project. But it becomes like working as a front-end developer, it could happen that someone asks you, I need a website in WordPress, or I need someone that maintained a website that is already in Joomla, on Drupal, or whatever. So yeah, also this is part of front-end development, in which you don't code. At same level, you can code also using these content management systems, but you can create your contents without seeing what is underneath as a template, as a code. That's it. As a web developer, here is my the list of my tips. Start from somewhere, doesn't matter where. Know the basics, then don't be afraid to try new things. Practice, practice, practice. That is all about. Being good becomes from practice and from experimenting. That is the main thing, especially in front end. The best thing of the front end is like you practice and you see what is going right in the browser in front of you. So in terms of development life cycle or process is the one that you really see what you are doing right away. Try any and all meaning not all, but just those that are commonly advised or famous front-end technologies. Learn to read documentation. Documentation is really important, especially when you have to learn new things and you are becoming from another. For example, you are using Angular and then you code to React. It's really important to read the documentation of React right away to understand how it works, and then go on. After that, form your opinion. So you can choose from one framework to another framework, from one library to another library, or work more. Make your hands dirty with code and be curious. So I'm almost done. And one last thing is, this is my opinion. Front-end development is often stimulating, and it is. But sometimes it can become frustrating. But that works also in any other development or in other software engineering paths or role too. But in order to start, I just wanted to leave you with these two skills that are really important before having the list of things to study or the things to do, or starting from somewhere. I think it's really important to know how to best manage the process of learning the essential information and skills, everybody has a different path of learning, different methods, and different ways of memorizing things. So just take a few minutes, a few hours to understand which is the best process for you for learning too much information, because front end or web development is too much information. So how you can manage in a best way to learn new skills. And the other thing is how to keep improving and updating, because one of the challenges of front end is that things change really often. Frameworks change quite often. Things and how things are made change quite often. And not only that, you have too many ways to do the same thing. So improving means choosing fast. And updating means changing from one framework to another, from one library to another, in no downtime, or just as quickly as possible. So that is it for me. Thank you very much. I hope I didn't talk a lot. Okay, maybe I talked a lot.
Thank you very much. The presentation was very helpful.
Okay,
and
I'm glad.
we learned a lot, and we get, I think. So the first question is from Vusal. He's asking, after Vanilla JS, which JS library would you recommend us to learn?
Okay, this depends on where you want to go, what you want to do. I personally prefer React, but this is my preference. I mean, this is what I prefer. I prefer React simply because I think it's the one that easy to understand after vanilla JavaScript. Angular, it's really nice. I like it, but anyways, the time to understand Angular, the curve of learning is a bit higher. So I recommend React. I prefer React simply. But this is my opinion. It depends on what you want to do, because if you want to go to work to Google, it's not that you want to learn React. It's better if you learn Angular, but
yeah, exactly.
But if you want to work to a big company that uses administrative applications, for example, mostly it's common to find for administrative applications using Angular, so you go that path. If you want to work in your mini projects, React will be the right framework to start small and to get big. So, yeah.
Okay, great. So the next question is how to know if I only need HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, or I need a JavaScript framework to include in my project.
Okay, how depends on how big is the project. Even if it's bigger project or small the project is, the thing is, are you sure with vanilla JavaScript you can make something writing from scratch that is good to your project? I mean, that is enough for your project? Okay. Why not? I mean, you can write anything that we do in frameworks can be written in vanilla JavaScript. The thing is that frameworks just make things easier to start. We have a starter kit already done, and we have to work on that. So the time that is taking to make the project is less than the time that you will take if you want to write vanilla JavaScript. That's the only difference, and that's up to you. There are some people that say, I don't like frameworks. I prefer to use on my own JavaScript. That is up to you. There are some people that say, no, I prefer to use JavaScript frameworks. Then they use frameworks to make one page. So in that case, it's not a good balance, right? I mean, use all the starter kit of a framework can be in terms of size. That was the picture of the oil, the big oil of JavaScript in the salad. It could be like that. So if you have to do one page or a website in general, don't use frameworks. Just go with vanilla, and you are perfectly good with it.
Okay, great. So I think Zishan has a question now.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
I apologize for the earlier technical difficulties. And I have a question. What was your first ever project and how did you manage it?
My very first project was building an administrative application. I was a trainee back then, and I just started web development, learned a bit of jQuery, some JavaScript, and then I started the first day and was AngularJS, and I didn't know nothing about AngularJS. So I think one of the very first codes that I wrote were completely wrong because I used obviously jQuery, which is something not to do. But then I realized about the errors, and I learned first few days AngularJS, and then started working on the project. So that was my very first project. I thought I knew something, but then I reached there, and it was something different than I was expecting. So yeah, I learned the very first weeks. I was learning instead of working.
I see. Thank you.
Okay.
And also, how do you know that you're ready to make a whole website? How do you know when you're ready?
When you have done your very first website. So usually when you do a bootcamp or when you do first courses of front-end development, you do portfolio. That is that is one of the sites that they make you build. So you do the portfolio, and then you do another website, and then you do another. Then you feel, oh, okay, I'm ready. Or when you start to put together things, then you say, okay, I can be ready to do any kind of websites or web applications. So when you are ready, it's not about if there is a time when you feel ready. It's about how many projects you have done, and if even the first project that you've done is big enough to show that you are good to make a website with all its features, then you're ready for the next one.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. So we have another question now. Do you build your projects from scratch or just get a template and modify it?
Okay, as a junior, I really wanted to do it from scratch, but that's not gonna happen. so
Yeah.
now, no.
Okay.
Honestly, no. That's about
Great.
don't reinvent the wheel, because if you have too many templates. Why need? The only thing that matters is if you understand what you are using. So understand what you are using, that is important. Then choose a template and use that template and work on that. From scratch, you will never end building it. And building it the right way, especially.
Thanks for the hope. Okay, great. So I think Ilknur, she has a question too.
Yeah, how front-end developers and back-end developers work together in company? What challenges do they face?
Okay. If you work in a front-end development team and there is a back-end development team, they usually don't look good each other. I mean, they feel like this is your responsibility. No, this is mine. No, this is the data is bad. No, you're sending it badly. You're sending. So if there are two teams, hardly you can manage to work together well. Or either, I mean, you manage, but sometimes backend developers say, this is my thing, I'm done, this is your data, and then the front end say, no, I cannot manipulate the data as you want, I need the data this format, this way, so it's easier. So yeah, front end and backend development, at least for my experience, usually we try to make some jokes about stuff going. I mean, saying you do bad, you did well, stuff like that. And help me with this one or help me with that one. I cannot do it in back end side. Why don't you do it on the front end side? So yeah, it happens sometimes a bit of balance and sometimes a bit of going one against the other because of implementing it the right way or the bad way in one part or in the other part. So yeah, that happens. Then when you are a full stack, you feel free to put it in the other part or in the other side, whichever it's easier to do. So yeah, mostly in my previous experiences as a front-end developer, when I was working as a front-end developer, we usually was like, back-end developers, they don't give us things properly, they don't send us the data properly, they do this, they do that. Stuff like that happens.
Okay, great. But if it's just one developer from here and one developer from here?
Depends on the projects. Usually there are more developers. I mean, I worked in a big in a banking in the internet banking application, for example, and we were lots front-end developers, and at the same time other back-end developers. We are teams of 5-6 front-end, and the other side 5-6 back-end developers with team leads. So it depends on the project. Obviously, it's not about the number of developers. Yes.
Okay, great. So Zishan.
We have a question from the chat that says, what is the expected salary as a new front-end developer?
Oh, this is a tricky question. I'm sorry, I cannot answer it properly. Depends on which market, obviously.
Okay.
So in my market here in Rome, which I'm based in Italy, I don't know, it can start from 1,200, 1,500. Depends, but it's one of the asked roles. I mean, for sure, front-end developers, still there are job opening and requests. Just depends on the market. But now, I mean, in part, due to the pandemic, working remotely also is possible. So it's just the market is different everywhere. I cannot answer on that. I mean, with range.
Okay, great. So I have another question. Actually, there's some people nowadays say that the back-end developers should get some front-end technical skills. What do you think about that? Is it a fact or it's just personal thoughts?
Oh, it really depends, because even in the front end, for example, or either in the back end, in the front end part also, there is if you are working with a big company that does front end or web development, there are people that do just the CSS part, for example, or work in just the framework part, or people that just work in a really tiny separate role. So in that case, obviously, if that backend developer works in that company, big company that works in this like granular part of roles, you shouldn't have the reason to see the front end part, obviously. It really depends on what's your aim. I mean, as a front end developer or either as a back end developer, depends where you work. If you are working in a small company, obviously you have to know almost everything. The separation of front end and back end cannot happen. But so you go full stack, obviously. But if you are working in a big project, in a big company, in that case, doesn't matter if you know parts of front end or parts of back end. You have enough work as just front end or either as just back end.
Okay, awesome. So Ilknur, I think she has a question too.
Yeah. Why should I choose front-end development over back-end development?
Why should I choose front-end development? Well, okay, I can speak for myself in this case because it depends on your experience, it depends on your aim, it depends what you like, right? So for me, seeing the user interface or being at the part which I can be creative, it was my aim. So I liked front-end development, obviously, and that's why I pursue the front-end development. I work full stack though, so I know backend development and I do backend development, but I feel more that I like the front-end development. If you are like fan of data, or if you are fan of configuration, or you like to work on the console, on the shell parts, on the let's say not things that you don't see, so you don't have interface for it. You see, but not really as the project, but just as the settings and tools control. Okay, in that case, you go for the backend. But I mean, for example, nowadays, even this is really not. I mean, there's not a neat separation because, for example, you go with cloud. So you host yourself as a front-end developer. Nowadays, it's important that you know at least how to host your projects. In that case, you don't even need from the backend development life cycle, right? I mean, the process of knowing where is the data or where is the thing, because there are too many tools that will just help you do that. And one of these is, for example, Firebase. So in case if you are using Firebase, you don't really have to have the know-how how to manage the data, or either how to do the queries, stuff like that. You have the tools, you have the APIs, you use that. So even as a front-end developer, you can work on that, and you become full stack this way. So yeah, it just depends which one you like. Or either mostly backend development is related to also different languages. So if you are working with JavaScript and you are working with Node, okay, you are a backend developer. But if you are using Python, for example, you are most probably good to do the backend development instead of the front-end development. Java, if you use Java as a language, so in that case also, if you use some language already and you want to go to web development, maybe you find yourself in one side or on the other side based on your previous experience or language or whatever. So yeah, depends on different things. And as I was saying, also as a front-end developer, you go towards the back-end development, or either a basic of cloud functions, or let's say not like cloud functions, but how cloud works and how to host with just simple line of commands and which tools to use. Nowadays, you have to know. Maybe 2 years ago, doesn't matter, because you do the development and then there will be the backend developer that's going to take the configuration of the server and configure it and launch the server and put your project there. But now you can do it yourself. It just matters of using the tools, learning the tools. So yeah, just it really depends on the project and where we are going in a direction where you can be full stack easily, but it depends on where you are going to work, in what kind of project you are going to work.
I have a question. Can you suggest a place to start learning front-end web development, and like what was your favorite place to start from your experience?
Okay, for my personal experience, one of the courses that I find nice to start from, there were the Udacity courses. There are some free courses for web development, starting from the HTML, CSS, and then intro to JavaScript. So I don't know if you know the platform Udacity. You just have to register there, and some are with payments, but there are individual courses that you can take that are not with payment, the free courses. So there, I like the materials there, and I started there. But a part of that, the boot camps. So there is a free boot camps for the front end, and that works also good. There are the thing is, like, there are too many choices, too many tutorials everywhere. And if you start from scratch, like you don't know nothing about HTML or that, okay, you start with the one course. And for my from where I started, for me, I saw different materials, and then I started with Udacity, and I liked that. And it was a nice introduction, gentle introduction to some level from HTML, CSS, and the JavaScript part. Then a part of that, you go with the frameworks. So the next step is the frameworks. But in between, if you have to choose the course, the only thing that I suggest that you choose the course based on how many projects it will make you make the project. So if it's too many projects, choose it, because it will really help you, because it's about practicing, making projects, working on the projects, stuff like that is much better than learning the theory part or having the list of the things to learn. So and that's why I prefer Udacity, actually, because you build some mini projects with the courses, and that will remain with you, and you can take it as a starter point to also other projects you're going to work on. But the more you do projects, building websites is like also, it's nice, because as you say, I'm starting to build the website, a friend will say, can you build my website? And then say, can you build my portfolio? Stuff like that. So you will find enough projects to work on if you want.
Thank you a lot.
I think you're muted.
Yeah, Hamza, you're muted.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so last question is, from your experience, how long does it take to learn the basics, the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript? Approximately.
Okay, approximately. Previously, I used to give courses from for students that starts from zero scratch. So with no prior programming language and everything, more or less, it took us 6 months to reach to at point where there were front-end developers and seeking for job as a front-end developer. It depends on how you practice, and it depends on the materials. And if you find even other mates or other colleagues that are willing to work with you, I think it's really not important, but it will be really good to find someone else to study with and to do some projects with. That really helps when you are newbie for any kind of learning paths for developing or coding. Anyways, the base, I guess, at least I say it really depends on where you start and how many time you practice. But for my experience of the courses that I did, 6 months was the time that needed to start and from scratch and finish with React, base of React, in Angular, base of React and Node.js as a backend, and a project to show. So I think a project as portfolio to show. So based on that, it could happen that for the basics of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, you can take a month. You can take 2 weeks if you do it daily, obviously. And but judge when you finish your first project. So 6 months, give it a time more or less of 6 months, but it can take you less than that. Just know steps to find a way that will make your process easier and reach to the goal. So if your goal is not about studying, it's about, I have this snippet, I have this code, I tried this, so now I'm good enough to put everything together and have something to show that looks nice. So that depends of each one of us, how we will do it there.
Okay, awesome. So I think there's no more questions. I think we came to the last. So if you have any advice, if you want to say something, we are okay to hear it.
Oh, I think I tried to pass all my suggestions, and in the ideas. So keep on practicing is about practicing and make it fun. Coding, make it fun by doing some, even if you don't want to build a website, you can build a page that is funny and you like it. Why not? It's not, they have to be a serious thing that you have to build. It's going to be a silly website that doesn't have nothing to say, but still it's nice to see. So start from whatever pleases you to do. So yeah, start easy, practice, and that's it. And have little things to show. So many things that you did together, put them together that are visible for you or also for the others to show. So use repo, manage to use repo, save on your repo, deploying also nowadays without no cost. You can deploy your website in GitHub pages, for example, or Firebase. If you want to know how, reach out, no problem. I have some articles written how to deploy easily your little demos. So make them visible, see them, share them, see with others, find someone else that is interested to learn and study together. That will reduce a lot your timing for learning new things or for creating a project, for example. So that would be it.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
We really enjoyed your presentation.
Yeah. So thank you for watching, guys. I hope to see you next time and in the upcoming events. So bye-bye.
Bye everyone. Have a good evening.